Disclaimer: the following episode contains gameplay recordings and other pre-recorded material that has been carried out by myself only. No content present on this show is done by a third party or by another person. All of this is my own work and none of it is shot live. Enjoy the show.
These are the days, these are the times, around when retro games were prime. I am Grey Warden, let me take you back in time. We discuss, we dissect, we experiment, we aim to take you back to the retro days, to the vintage days. This is the Games Lab, prepare to be amazed. Whoa.
Yo, what's up? Welcome back to the Games Lab. I'm Gray, your host, and today we are discussing, dissecting, and experimenting with one of my favourite games on Sega Genesis. It's King's Bounty, A Conqueror's Quest. Now, there's a lot to discuss in this, so without further ado, we're just going to get fired right into it. So, discussion. I'll make it as brief as possible, but there is quite a bit to get into. So, the plot of the game, the premise, if you like, is you take control of any of four playable characters. There's a knight, a paladin, a barbarian, and a sorceress. They all have their names: Sir Crimson, Lord Palmer, Tanestra, who's the sorceress, and Mad Moham, who's the barbarian. And you embark on an adventure through four continents to try and recover the King's Sceptre of Order, which has surprisingly his life bound to it, and you have a certain amount of days, if you like, to accomplish this. It's more than just adventuring. There's combat as well. You have the prospect of raising an army to fight battles, carry out sieges on castles, raise the best army you can possibly get. The armies we will discuss in the dissection phase, but I would like to stress out, do not let the soundtrack of the game put you off watching, as it does go through you after a while. But just a little side note, this game actually gave birth to the Might and Magic series. The Might and Magic games are quite similar. I prefer this to Might and Magic, but we're not doing Might and Magic, we're doing King's Bounty. So there are bad guys in this, they're villains. Each villain occupies a castle with a rather absurdly powerful army. It's up to us to lay siege, defeat the army, capture the villain, and that will reveal a piece of the map to the Stolen Scepter. Now, the map can be anywhere of the four continents. Once we've got the area sussed, you go there, you search the area, and if you're in the right spot, you get a little scene that ends the game. And there are also artifacts lying round about this map as well, these maps as well. There's two in each continent. There's the Ring of Heroism, which randomly gives you a kind of a random boost to your attacks. It's not great. The articles, which increase the weekly income, which will the financial part we'll talk about on the dissection phase, as it's not all about raising an army, it's all about paying your way as well. You have an income you get from the king, and there's bills to be paid, but more to come in the dissection phase for that. There's the Shield of Protection, which halves the amount of damage your army will take. There is the Anchor, which will reduce your weekly boat rental from 500 gold down to 100. Very useful artifact to grab. These artifacts, side note, the artifacts also reveal a piece of the map to the puzzle, so that's why they're worth collecting. There's the Book of Necros, which increases the amount of spells you can carry. The Crown of Command, which doubles your leadership. That is the most important artifact in the game. More to come in the dissecting phase. There is the sword, I believe it's called the Sword of Prowess or something, that increases the amount of damage you can do. And there is I can't remember exactly what it's called, and I should have known this before I started filming. It's sort of like a locket, like a necklace. It's an amulet, I think they call it, the amulet, and that boosts your spell power. And these are important factors that you must do if you want to complete the game successfully, if you want to be able to be
efficient
in combat. With the dissection phase, we will discuss the armies and where you can recruit them and which ones to avoid, which ones to take. That's a brief discussion. That is pretty much a summarised version of the game, but we're going to dive right into the
dissecting
phase now with the game open. So let's get fired right in to the dissection phase. Right, welcome to the dissecting phase of today's Games Lab episode. These are your 4 characters on screen from left to right. They are Sir Crimson the Knight, Lord Palmer the Paladin.
I feel like you're saying Paladin, that's what I used to call him.
Tanesha the Sorceress, who's on the far right, and Mad Moham the Barbarian. Now, for this play, we are going to select easily the best character to pick and the most efficient, and that is Tanesha the Sorceress. We'll set it to easy, so we've got 900 days to do this. So here is the overworld. Once again, I'm sorry about the music. So this is the King's Castle. There's some orcs and some elves at the back there. So let's talk about the town layouts first. So this is what happens when you visit a town.
nice random zombies starting the stuff there.
So get your contract. These are the villains that we hunt. If you want to actually see more what they're like, we go here. There is the puzzle pieces. These are your villains. The green demon, blue dragon, and the dude with the skull cap making the gold ring appear. They're the final 3. They are the hardest ones to capture, and your artifacts are all around about the outside, but we will find these. Right, so back to the town. So there's your contract. We're going to rent a boat, which is going to cost us 500 gold per week, and we're going to buy ourselves some siege weapons, which will allow us to lay siege on a castle. Now, with the exception of Tanesha, who we are playing as, every other character you're required to learn magic, and I'll show you the spot where that can happen. So we're going to buy our siege weapons. I'd like to just make one thing clear. So the game operates on a 5-day week basis. Every week completes will give you the week of a specific creature in the game, and what that does is it refills the dwellings of which you can recruit those creatures. So say for instance it will come up, say, week of the peasant. Any place you can recruit peasants, which I'm going to come on in just a second, that will refill how many is available, but we'll get back to that when it happens. So let's get back to the game and let's continue the dissection phase. I just wanted to point that out, little side note there. Right, so we're back into the game. So now, treasure chests. There are different types you will encounter. Ones that will allow you to pick up the gold and to distribute the gold, which increases your leadership. Every chest we are going to do, we are going to increase our leadership. This is a must. This will determine how many troops we can recruit, and it also will make them more efficient in battle. So every chest that we're going to find. Now, we're not in a combat state at the minute. Let's have a quick look at the King's Castle. So there's 5 types you can get here: militia, archers, pikemen. Cavalry and knights are unavailable until we have been promoted, which we will receive by capturing villains. We then go to audience with the king, and as you can see there, he says, I can aid you better after you've captured 3 more villains, which means we will be promoted to magician, then mage, and then at the top of the bunch, archmage. It is the highest promotion there. So all we're going to do is set sail into the water. So this chest is one of the chests that increases the weekly income. Now, just one thing I like to do when I play this, and I recommend you do this, is this is the screen here of what happens. So on hand we have 6k gold. Our income, we've been paid 3. Our boat rental, we paid 500. Our army is 40 because we do actually have 2 army slots filled already. As you can see, the budget with peasants and sprites, these are the 2 worst armies in the game. And we have a balance of 9k. So I'm going to do this So now we've got, see how it says weak of the skeleton? All skeleton dwellings are now populated. If we say there was a dwelling that had 50 skeletons available and we recruited all 50, it would then say no skeletons are available. This here will put it back to 50, this will repopulate the dwelling. And now we have up to 11k, they do it the third time, the fourth time, and the fifth time, just to give us a start of some gold. So let's have a look at the map. Now the map is very pixelated, you can't see a lot because it's all black and unexplored. There is a chest that will reveal the whole map. So the idea here is I'm going to do a perimeter of the map, and then I'm going to explore up the river and to the lands between and try and grab as many chests as I can. Hopefully we will find the chest containing the way to the next continent and we can keep moving on. So we're going to increase. That there is an ogre. So let's talk about the dwellings quickly. I'm going to bring up a screenshot of all the armies that are available to us in the game, and I'm going to show you which each one and what dwellings they come from. So let's dive in, let's dissect that quickly. It will be a lot easier if we do that. Right, so now we have all the armies on the screen. So like I said earlier on in the dissection phase as well as the discussion, there are 5 dwellings. There's the castle dwelling, as we mentioned earlier in this part of the episode, where you have militia, who are the guys with the long black hair and the red tops. They are third along on the top row under the word archmage. Would I recruit them? To start off with, yes, they're a good starting army, but they do take quite a lot of casualties, so not using them in the long term is the best solution. We have pikemen, which are on the far left row, right in the centre, with the long spears next to the horse riders in white suits. They are the pikemen. They are a bit tankier than militia, and they're also good to use at the start, so I would bring them along early game, but for end game, no, I wouldn't use them. There are archers, which are the blue bow wielders under the wolves. They are okay, they're not the best archer types. We'll come to the best type just shortly. I would use them at the start, but once we get the army for the end game stuff, we can dismiss them. There's no issue. I wouldn't take them into end game. That's definitely not recommended. Cavalries, which are 2 under the archers, the horsebacks above the demons. They are the only unique unit out of the castle dwelling, as they are the only unit in the game that move 4 spaces in the battlefield, and they're ideal if you want to play a frontline sort of a kind of tank build where you're using them as tanks to suppress the enemy archery side, and you can use ranged attacks to attack the enemy as well. The cavalries hold the line, but there is a better unit out there for doing that. I'll come to that in just a couple of minutes. Would I take them for the end game? It depends how far I want to take it. If I'm wanting to capture every villain, I will not use them for the last 3. I will probably take them as far as the second villain in the third continent, but we'll get onto that when we are doing the experimental phase. And last but not least, for the castle dwelling is knights. They are on the very far right row under the elves. They are fully suited with a big red shield with a yellow, looks like a chevron. Knights only move 1 space, so they're not very mobile, but their attack power is phenomenal. They are a good asset to have, even to a degree in endgame, but only if you can have a very large number of them, and we're talking around about 1,000 for them to have any endgame effect. So that's the castle dwelling. Let's move on to the plains dwelling, which the plains on the overworld map is represented by a wagon, and it's a very broken looking wagon. So what do we get in the plains? Well, we get peasants, which are the ones right at the very top left. We do not want peasants in our army at all. They are the weakest and worst army in the game. Give them a wide berth altogether. After that, we have wolves, which are next to the militia, opposite the skeletons in the very top row. They are just as bad, but they are slightly stronger in both attack and defense. I would not use them at all for any battles. Even overworld battles, I would avoid the wolves. They are not worth it. After that, we have the nomads, which are in front of the pikemen and behind the dwarves in the third row, second from the left. horseback with the white ninja-like suit. Nomads they're mediocre. Uh, They're not they're not an army you want to be looking for. I would just leave them, give them a wide berth. They're nothing special. They're balanced, but in long term and end game, nah, I wouldn't use them. Then we have barbarians, which are right underneath these nomads. Barbarians are okay. They're quite hard to kill if you encounter them early. If you encounter them early on, you're gonna have a hard time with them. If you at least have for in this case, because we're playing as Tenestra, if you have the mage promotion, you'll not have much of a hard time because you'll have enough units to be able to take barbarians down simple. So there's no harm done there. And last but not least, the very bottom left, the nice robe looking dudes with the lightning, the archmages, they are a must for endgame. They are the most powerful caster or ranged unit, if you like. You could class them as archery, but because they don't fire a bow, they fire fireballs. Although that looks like lightning, they pack a punch, especially in numbers, and they also fly as well, which they don't look like a flying unit, but they are a flying unit. They are a must. They can only be found in Sahara in the fourth continent. Unless you find one roaming about the overworld, 9 times out of 10 you can recruit it. If your army's full, it will flee. So if you want to recruit them, have a space in your army, and you should be able to recruit those. Just watch your leadership, as they do require a decent amount of leadership to be able to keep control of them. They may appear out of control if you do recruit them at an early stage. Now we're going to move on to the forest dwelling. The forest dwelling is represented by a treehouse. So what do we get there? These guys that are flying like fairies with the red dresses on, the ginger hair and the wings, these are sprites. They are just as bad as peasants. The only difference between them and peasants is sprites can fly. They are easily killed in one attack. They have a very low morale, low defense, low attack. They suck. Don't recruit sprites. You actually get them as a starting army for Tenestra, but once I'm geared up, I dismiss the hell out of them because they're not worth it. And underneath them, we have gnomes, which look like little orange wizards. Gnomes are just as bad. They're weak as well. We don't recruit gnomes either. Following that, we get the strongest of the archers, elves. Do we pick up elves? Yes, at the very start of the game while we are exploring and we are capturing the first set of villains in the first continent, elves are a good option to have. They are very mobile, they can move 3 spaces, so they can easily evade flying units or any units that have a lot of movement, like cavalries or wolves or anything that move like 3 spaces. Elves are good because you can easily move out of their way and then use your shoot attack if need be. They are a good asset to have. I would look for an elf dwelling early doors, it will help. Following that, we have trolls after elves in terms of worst to best. Trolls, they're not mobile, they only move 1 space, but they have a very high attack power, hence the size. They are quite tough. If you encounter these early doors, you're going to have a hard time with them. We don't want to encounter them early, we want to avoid them until we have at least the first promotion. Then we will stand a better chance killing them. Will we recruit them for endgame? No, they're not necessary for endgame unless you are going out on an all brute build. You can probably bring them along as well as ogres. We'll talk about the ogres in just a second. Last but not least, the druids, which is the second casting unit like the archmages, only they cast lightning as opposed to fireball. Druids are very powerful, especially in large numbers. If you encounter them early on, you're going to have a tough time with them, but you don't really encounter druids until the third continent, which is also where you can recruit them. If you're playing just to sort of get to a point where you can identify where the scepter's hidden and then just go for endgame without capturing all the villains, I would recruit druids. They will help with the ranged combat. Now we're going to move on to the dungeon dwelling. The dungeon dwelling looks like a prison.
A haunted prison to be exact.
These are your undead units. You can identify them in the picture. Now, we'll start with skeletons. Skeletons are basically an undead form of the militia, however they have better defense. They don't take as many casualties as the militia do when using them in combat, but they are basically an undead version of them. They're an ideal base army to have if you're just casually going about clearing maybe the first 2 continents only. Anything beyond that, you are going to need to have a hell of a lot of them for them to have any effect, but I wouldn't stress wasting your gold on recruiting a large amount of skeletons. There's better options out there. Then we have zombies. Zombies are actually probably worse than skeletons. I should have maybe started with them. They move one space only, as opposed to the skeletons 2 spaces, and they're easily killed. Don't worry about zombies, they're not that good. Now the next one in this list is quite unique, for just like how the cavalry unit is unique to the castle dwelling, this is unique to the dungeon dwelling ghosts. And the reason that they're unique in quite a bad way actually. They're unique because they can turn on you randomly, and when that happens, it is so bad. The chances of it happening are actually quite high. I've run ghosts a couple of times in the past. I would not recommend recruiting them. They may be your last line of defense, and then they will just turn on you like that. The only good thing about them is they have lifesteal, which means they will multiply as you kill enemies up to the amount you came into the battle with. So if you've come in with 50 ghosts and say you lost 20, if you kill 15 of a unit, you will gain 15 of that 20 back. You then kill another 10, you will only gain 5 to make that 20 up back to your maximum. That's how the lifesteal works, but there is a better lifesteal army out there. We're just about to come right onto them. Vampires. Vampires, the first of the flying units for the undead. Vampires have lifesteal like ghosts, but they don't turn on you. They're very good to have towards endgame. The only problem is the upkeep for keeping them per week is quite extortionate. So for endgame, with the strat that we'll be doing, we won't be recruiting them, but they are actually good to have for just casually taking on the other villains outside of the last continent. They're actually quite decent. Recruit them if you want, but I won't go out my way for them and waste the gold on them. There's still better options out there. And last but not least, for the dungeon dwelling, we have the demons, as you can spot right at the bottom opposite the dragons, the red dudes with the wings. Demons are also a unique unit because they have a certain attacking ability that no other army in this game has, and that is half. Now what half does is that cuts the population of an army in half, but sometimes it actually doubles the half and it actually kills the full stack, but that is a very rare chance in terms of the RNG side of things to happen. Would I recruit demons for endgame? Hell yeah, because they will help. Big downside, they are expensive as hell to run, so you need to really have a lot of finance at the back in order to keep these long term and make sure you keep attacking enemies and keeping your revenue high, or you're going to lose them very quickly. And now we're going to move on to the last dwelling, which is the hill, represented by a cave on a volcano-like hill structure. Now, bear in mind, some of these in the map will actually teleport you. They won't actually house an army to recruit. So at the start, we will first talk about orcs. Orcs are above the dwarves in the picture, the green guys with the sort of a red hair and the bow, behind the archers if you're looking for them. Orcs are the worst archer unit in the game. They are very easy to kill and they don't have a lot of manpower. Don't ever recruit orcs, they're not good at all. We'll then move on to the army underneath them, which is dwarves. When you start this game, if you go right into battle with the box standard leadership and you try and you recruit some militia, some archers and some pikemen, you're going to have 50 militia, 8 archers and 8 pikemen. When you come up against dwarves, they're going to cause you problems. They're actually very hard to kill right at the start, but once you build a decent sized army, it doesn't take a lot to be honest, but once you build a decent sized army, they won't be a problem. And when you get towards endgame and you've got your endgame army that you're using to beat the rest of the game, you'll absolutely wipe them. Long term, they're not ideal to have, but if you encounter them early, just watch. They can actually be hard to kill, but they don't really do much damage as such. I wouldn't worry about recruiting dwarves at all. They're not really worth bringing to any battle in my opinion. After that, we've got the ogres, which are stated above the archmages and behind the barbarians. Ogres like dwarves. I would say ogres are more like dwarves 2.0, but in terms of recruiting them, they're not recommended unless you're doing a brute build like we mentioned with the troll earlier. If you're going to do a brute build, ogres are actually not too bad, especially if you're playing as the barbarian character, because his top army that he can recruit are ogres, and they can actually be quite handy. for doing a similar strat that we're going to be doing in the experimental phase much later in the episode, where you can spam a lot of instant army spells and then use the raise control spells to bring the army into your control to take it to battle. Because if you have an army that's out of control, they'll attack anything, and once all your army's dead, they become enemies. We don't want that to happen. That can really become a problem, because then they'll roam the overworld, and if you run into them, you're going to have a lot of ogres to deal with. But for long term and end game, they're not worth bothering about, especially playing as Tanestra. But if you're playing as Bad Moham, it might be an option for you. Now we're going to talk about giants. Giants are stated between the vampires and the demons, right at the bottom of the screen. He's got a boulder above his head. He's all yellow, like a Simpsons character. Giants are very good archers. They're quite powerful. They have a good defense as well. They're actually quite sturdy. If you're doing a brute build, sort of a brute army like your trolls, your ogres, giants are your ranged go-to for that. They will be quite effective, but when it comes to capturing the last bunch of villains, they're no really worth it. You really need to have solid attack power and a solid balance between
a very sturdy leadership
against a very sturdy, high-powered army, plus the finances at the back to accommodate, to really push through and get these last villains captured. Giants will not take you into that phase. You are better with the next option, which we're going to come to. Last but not least, it's at the bottom right, it's Breathing Fire. These are the guys you want, the dragons. These are the best army in this game by far, and they're also a unique enemy. And I only discovered this recently, but if you only have a dragon in your army when you're in the last continent, Sahara, if you press the B button, you can actually fly around the map. I did not know you could do this, and I played this game for years, and I never knew you could do that. I seen it on a long plays video from the World of Long Plays YouTube channel, and that's where I discovered it. I looked at it and I was like, whoa, that's actually quite insane. I never knew you could do that. Dragons are the ones you want. They're going to be the front line of your end game army, and with your large leadership, especially if you do the strat of grabbing the Crown of Command artifact, once you have looted every chest, got your highest promotion, and you cannot push that leadership higher, and you grab that Crown of Command to double that leadership, you can nearly get 30 of these in one recruit. However, the dwellings are very low populated, so you will have to wait for a week of the dragon to suffice, and it is random, so you might never get it. You might get them quite a lot. Recommendation: if you have 27 dragons, for example, and you get a week of the dragon, go to your castle that you occupy, garrison them, and go and recruit more, and keep doing that throughout the game. And when it comes to the end game fights, you just withdraw your dragons into the one army, and then use your race control spells. You will be unstoppable. That is one way to win the end game. That is the dwellings. That is the army. Now we are going to return back to the game and continue with the dissection phase. Unfortunately, due to a technical error, or some technical difficulties I should say, the rest of the dissection phase had to be cut out of the episode, but truth be told, we have actually covered the majority of the game and what actually did work out. The mic has not recorded properly for some reason, so I'm having to just move the episode straight onto the experimental phase once again. I do apologise for that. Then I'll remind myself at the instant. I'll need to see if I can find race control spells though. If I can find race control spells, we can catch these three. If not, I might just need to go and find the scepter and fail the experiment, because I will not be able to do this without the race control. Let me grab a few of these actually. I might just need to look at every town until I find a town that's selling race controls, then remind myself of the instant army. Oh, they're there. Right. I think what we'll do is we'll do the night strat. Now, I need to find Castle Gate spells to make this possible. But before we do that, let's make sure we've found all the chests in here. Looks like there's a couple at the top. That's Earthrex Killspike's castle. 3 town gate spells, that's handy. I can use them to go back. Some demons up. Right, I think we're good. I think it's time we grab the crown in Archipelago and we'll get our... I know I said the druid strat, but I think we'll go with the knight strat. I think that's the safest option. Because I don't think there's any instant army spells in this place. I'll have a look. I know I did find them earlier, didn't I? I found instant armies earlier, I just can't remember where I seen them. It might have been by the desert. And we also want to keep an eye out for castle gates, because I'm going to need them to make this possible. Yeah. Oh, we got a week of the dragon. Yes, instant armies. I kinda did this a stupid way actually. Right. Have I got any castle gate? Nah, I don't. Right, so here's how we do this. I'm gonna need to locate castle gates, I think, before I do this strat. If we do this, it'll be much easier. I know I came across towns that had them, at Chester. Fireball. I'm going to need to burn some spells just to be able to recruit them as well. Right, there you go. So what I'll do is I'll burn that. Town gate, Hunterville. So here's what we do. We have 15 dragons at the minute. I wish it was more. Right, so we garrison our dragons. We can still fly without them because we've all got a flying enemy, so go back to our boat. Which we don't have, so we'll buy a new one. We go to Sahara. And we go to where we got the dragons. It's 27, it's not fully filled them, but Right, so we go 27. I'll just check the archmages because I'm not sure if that's what I kind of skipped it a bit quick there. So I find that archmage dwelling. I remember where I seen it. Nah, there isn't there. So I'm gonna use this again. I'm gonna go to no, we don't want to gas, we want to remove. Bring the dragons with us. Use the castle gate and go to Zizarza's, which is his castle. Now, if we look, the dragons are actually not out of control. 42 is actually a good amount. We want to now start spamming those. We have over 1000 and they're out of control, so now what we do is we spam race controls. And we do them every so often until we just keep checking. Now this is not a permanent effect, it's a temporary effect. And now the same morale low, we can lose siege. So the peasants will go there, being there. And the druids will take them out. Search mage is dead. Vampire's dead. So all that's left now is to fight them, but we can actually shoot them. That's death spell taken care of. Now we cannot fly because we've got druids in our army. These are going to appear out of control again. Now we don't want to fight nothing. Actually hold on. One more town gate. Now what we'll do with these druids for now, if it'll let us do it, is we'll garrison them so that we can fly. Right, so we need to go and stock up on instant armor, which I believe we're in here by the desert. Kind of overshot it a wee bit. Right, this time we're just going to outbuy everything. So we've none left, right? How many castle gates have I got left? I've got 3, so what I'll do is I'll span there just to get me back here. Actually, hold on. We'll remove these druids. Now we need to act fast here, because we need to get to the other side of Sahara and buy these race controls and then warp to his castle and fast. We need to also avoid fights because the druids are out of control. Look how much money we're losing. Right, We need to do this now or we are not going to get this. The worst comes to the worst. I'll tell. Oh, I need the race controls first to work though. Come on. Where's the town? There it is. No, don't do that! No, I didn't want that! This ain't good. I'll just show you what happens. Look. There the druids have turned. That's a mess up. That's a big mess up. However, it's not the end of the world. Watch these dragons die. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens when you lose a fight with an army that's out of control. They become enemies. For the rest of that playthrough, they were on the map right next to that town, made things a bit difficult, but amusing at the same time. Let's continue and see how the experiment ends. Right. Now we're ready. Let's see if we can take these out. The 2k druids. So far so good. I just wanted to gain some ground there. Right. Now we're combat ready. Let's go. Now we're surrounded. Just need to watch the vampires because they have lifesteal but they're not dead, so take out the smaller group of dragons first, then we'll focus on the big set. Right. Remember, magic has no effect on the dragons, or I would have happily shot them with lightning. So we are starting to take casualties, so we need to kill them pretty quickly. I think we're going to be alright. Ah, we're fine. We done it. Wow. Right, sorry about the long pause in recording, but I think I've finally found the end game. That seems to match up. Well, there you have it. That was King's Bounty here at Games Lab. Discussed, dissected and experimented. And the experiment was a big success. Now, once again, I apologise for the part of the episode that was cut, but that was a success nonetheless. And that is all we have time for at Games Lab in this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.
Games Lab, come on down, let's play. Come on down, let's play.
Reminder, the content shown on this episode was played, recorded and edited by only myself and no other person and or third party. The theme song lyrics were written in full by me and the music through AI.